Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some consequences for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Cross-posted from r/I don't work here lady by Great Question Fran. The original OP is ligamentary. Dad doesn't approve of school sex ed class, so offers his own in competition with the school. Also, because of the times we live in here, this was posted 5 years ago, so despite the usage of EM dashes, it is not AI generated. Dad doesn't approve of school sex ed class, so offers his own in competition with the school. My good friend works in administration at the high school, and she's had her share of stories over the years, but wow, is this one a roller coaster. The high school offers sex ed every year as part of the mandatory health credit. Families are free to opt their kids out of sex ed if they wish, but the kids still have to participate in the alternative health course offering. All of the students take the same introductory portion before splitting off into sex ed, and those who have opted out. The initial section covers, among other things, the dynamics of a healthy relationship, including matters of consent. Right away, as in immediately after the first day, a father tried to remove his son from the class. It was explained to him that he couldn't opt out of this portion. He was furious, posting these long rants on the town Facebook page and on the school's parent portal, and I'm sure elsewhere, about how the class was political, and we were shaming his son for being a man. And it was up to the families to teach these private subjects, so the school should stay out. He took issue with the lessons on habitually asking for consent, but also on the importance of discussing emotions freely, healthy division of labor between romantic partners, and avoiding sexual harassment. This is how this guy began to develop a following. Parents would say they disagreed with him on almost everything he was spouting, but that they were in lockstep that it wasn't the school's place to teach kids about personal topics like relationships. He started camping outside of the building while his son's section of the class was being taught, and shouting his own theories and beliefs at kids as they walked into the building, even handing out a pamphlet he got off some junk website. The school is set up as such, so that it's easy to be on a public thoroughfare but still within full view of a classroom, so we didn't have legal grounds to send him packing. His supporters would honk their horns or even occasionally stop by to bring him cold drinks and sandwiches. It was nuts. Then, one day, towards the end of the non-optional portion of the class, they had a police officer coming in to talk to everyone about how to report a sexual assault, know if you've been assaulted, and what to expect when you go to make your report, etc. The officer's own daughter is a student at the high school, so he was extra protective of the whole group. When he saw this guy standing outside the building shouting about how mutual consent is for the weak, he wasted no time shoving him off. This happened right outside of the main administrative building. The guy tried to argue, "I'm on public land, I have a right to be here and say whatever I want," and started quoting some city ordinance thinking he'd really gotten one over on the veteran police officer. Nope, he wasted no time informing him, "You're causing a disturbance. You can leave or I can remove you. You've got about 10 seconds to decide." He watched him get into his car to be sure he actually left, and apparently the guy made a few more smart comments to him about how, oh boy, the blacks are right. There really are no good cops left these days. But luckily the officer didn't let any of those gross comments provoke him and just said, "Sir, everyone certainly has a right to hold their own opinions and express their views, but when and how you do it matters in the eyes of the law. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. You can't contradict teachers outside of their classrooms at the school. You hearing me? Yay, Hygh versus North Carolina." At first blush, the guy was not hearing him because he drove off without response, and that story in of itself spread like wildfire around town. However, for everyone who pasted him as a laughingstock for making such a display, there was someone else who saw him as a hero fighting the system. And it turned out he was actually listening closer to the officer's warning than any of us would have liked. The optional sex ed portion began the following week, and this fool had begun placing Facebook ads, not the paid kind, but just posting his own ads from his account, for his own sex ed class. Because he can say whatever he wants in the appropriate setting, right? What sort of negligent, ass-backwards, head-in-the-sand kind of parent you have to be to let your child leave school in the middle of the day to attend, as he dubbed it, sex ed for real men. Inside a stranger's house, a private citizen unaffiliated with the school, is beyond me. But the group who'd begun to follow his whole campaign and support him online and such was all for it and actually deliberately sent their kids to him. To be fair, he did advertise it as being totally non-sexual in nature, with his big driver being that those discussions should be left to the parents. And he was offering a class that covered traditional morals, values, and chivalry, promising to take us back to good old days. He also had plenty of stuff about how his taxes paid the school's salary, so if enough people made their preferences clear, the faculty would have to fall in line and stop disseminating harmful materials, like teaching high schoolers consent. As far as we knew, this guy had a job, so he must have taken considerable time off to make this happen. A significant chunk of the male students, about a fifth, withdrew in favor of sex ed for real men. Some satirically, more so than seriously, but still. Even one was too many in my book, regardless of reasoning. My friends and I managed to get our hands on a copy of a portion of the syllabus that was leaked, and it covered things like the man's and the woman's role in the relationship, what's appropriate after how many dates, rounding the bases, and some random survival skill training was mixed in as well, grouped under making yourself desirable. As this was going on, he sent taunting letters to the school faculty, letting them know how popular his class was and how great it was doing, as though his son didn't still have to continue attending there, and he, the dad, didn't have an ongoing relationship with the faculty, plus at least one more kid who hasn't hit high school yet. Whenever he was on campus to watch his son in a game or just pick him up, he made a point of telling the faculty involved in health class what a better job he was doing of teaching than they ever did, and how he was saving the immoral world by righteously luring kids into his basement during school hours. By the end of the semester, which just wrapped up, he was genuinely expecting some sort of white flag from the high school side. When they called him in for a meeting, he was all set to gloat and even charitably, or so he thought, concede that the people at school were just doing their jobs, and couldn't help that he was better at teaching than they were because he was working with fewer bureaucratic restrictions. The faculty patiently listened to this as he wouldn't let them get a word in edgewise, before finally informing him that his son would need to take summer school, because while sex ed was optional, the alternative on-campus course was required in its place. This man was somehow shocked to learn his son couldn't just be pulled out of school midday every week for months. The school explained they'd sent letters home and called, but never heard back from him, which is why they were having this meeting, which was a fiasco to schedule in and of itself. Everyone is guessing he just didn't open any letters from the school and didn't bother listening to their messages. So he started talking about how his son had taken a health class, and he had a right to teach his son if he preferred, and on and on. They replied that if he wanted to homeschool his son, he was free to do so. However, he'd have to unenroll him from public school and register his son as a homeschooler. He could not switch between his own lessons and public school on a whim. He was enraged by this and felt wholly entitled to circumvent state regulations and even federal procedures in order to, well, basically do whatever he wanted. So he said his son would just fail health and that he took it as a badge of honor. The school said that was his prerogative. However, in that case, his son would not be promoted to the next grade level, as it was a required credit. This really blustered him, and he left. Then, after a few days of thinking about it, informed the school in writing that he would be unenrolling his son and registering him somewhere else. The school cheerfully informed him that would be fine, but he couldn't enroll him as matriculating into the coming grade because they could not certify his passing until he completed all required credits for his current year. A logistical note, the other students in sex ed for real men were not facing summer school because their health class was scheduled at a separate time, so they took it in addition to the credit-bearing in-school alternative. Those in the same period block as his son just didn't take this guy's class, or withdrew to return to school after receiving the first notice home. So now, unfortunately, his son is bearing the weight of his entitled father's poor choices. But not alone! Busing is significantly decreased during summer school, so from what I understand, his father will have to wake up early every day to drive him in.
What? The health class that I ran out of my basement doesn't count for credits? What do you mean? I just want to teach my son to be a man, and that consent is for the weak. Oh, fuck you and your bureaucratic bullshit. I'll just enroll my son in a different school. Let's see what you think of that. What do you mean I can't?
I feel bad for the kid because I just know the father was forcing him to attend a shitty class, and I also know the kids were probably making fun of him for this as well. He's probably going to be held back because his father has one hell of an ego complex and has decided that he knows better, and personally, it's of my opinion that sex ed is actually crucial to be taught the full enchilada, the full shebang, because the thing is, from a data standpoint and statistically speaking, states where sex ed is either taught as an abstinence-only education or just not taught at all actually have higher teen pregnancy rates than states that do teach just regular sex ed. Not to mention, because those states are also lacking proper education, they also have far higher STD and STI rates. That's not opinion, that is actual, just observable statistical fact. Honestly, the person who I feel the worst for in this entire story is actually the wife / the mom. I hope he's divorced. Cross-posted to UhOhConsequences by Little Soda Pop 13. Originally posted to r/best of Redditor updates, and the original poster is Boss Baby 33, and their tagline is, "I've read them all!" The original OP is Magic Man 1000, posted to r/Am I the Asshole. Posted August 27th, 2022. Am I the asshole for selling my Nintendo Switch? I, 22 male, and my fiancé, 23 female, got an apartment a few months ago. So far everything has been okay. We were struggling to pay rent, but we've been able to manage to pay our bills. We do live paycheck to paycheck despite us both working nearly 40 hours a week. So, last year, when the new Nintendo Switch OLED came out, I bought myself one. I don't use it anymore, but my fiancé plays it nearly every single day. I didn't care because my mom had gotten me a PS5 as a housewarming gift. I usually play on that when I have spare time. Since September is coming up, I realized I was about nearly $200 short on my part of rent. I was short because I ended up splurging a little too much on food. I couldn't think of a way of making the $200 before next week until I realized my old Switch I never play. I took it and a few games and sold it to GameStop. I had gotten the $200 I needed for rent plus a few extra to get me and my fiancé some dinner. Later that night when my fiancé got home from work, she went into the bedroom to shower. After that, we ate some dinner. After we ate, she asked where the Switch was because she couldn't find it. I told her what I had done to it, and she stopped eating. "Are you serious?" she asked me. I told her, yeah, I did because I needed it for us to pay rent. She had a confused and hurt look on her. She pointed to my PS5 in the living room and said, "So if I cannot make my part of rent, I should sell this?" And I said, "No, that was a gift from my mom. The Switch is mine. I bought it myself, so it wasn't yours to begin with. I can sell my stuff if I want." After I said this, she got up from the table without finishing her dinner and went into the bedroom. I thought I heard crying, but I couldn't tell. It didn't make sense to me why she was upset. It was my things, and I was just letting her use it. She told me she wanted to go stay with her mom to think. Think about what? I told her whatever, and she left. I don't think I'm the asshole here because I did what I had to do so we could pay rent, but I'm starting to feel guilty because my fiancé is really upset. Am I the asshole? Edit, I did not tell my fiancé I was behind on rent because I didn't think it was her business to know I was going to be behind. Our own money is our own business. She doesn't tell me about her finances and I don't tell her about mine. Also, we had an SD card in the Switch, which I have kept if she ever wants to buy her own Nintendo Switch. Edit 2. I want to thank you for the people saying I'm not the asshole and seeing my side. Okay, I just want to step in super quick here. I went to the comments in the original post, and I've been kind of reading through. There's 1.3k comments, sorted by controversial to see what I could find. I can maybe only find 5 not the asshole comments out of 1.3k. So, take that as you will. I want to say thank you for people saying I'm not the asshole and seeing my side. Without doing this, we could have possibly been late for rent, and worst case, we get evicted. I do hate seeing my fiancé upset, and I plan to take her to dinner soon to make up for it. She's more than welcome to play on my PS5 if she wants, because I have no intention of selling it. There's not much of an update between me and her. She's still at her mom's house, and I've been at the house playing on the PS5 all day. But you guys are right, I probably should have told her beforehand. That was my mistake. Also, I disagree with what's mine is yours. Does that mean her makeup is mine? No. It's not mine, and I'd never sell her belongings or use it without permission. Info. I did not ask her if she wanted to buy it beforehand because I honestly didn't think of it. Why would she give me $200 for it when she has to pay half of rent too? Doesn't make sense. Should I have offered it to a family member? Probably yes. That's my mistake too. Edit 3. My fiancé finally got home around 8:45. She had a new Nintendo Switch in her hand. I asked her how she got it and where she got it. She told me it's none of my business, when it is. I told her she could have possibly spent the rent money, and she said, "Don't worry about how I got it." I'm scared she spent the rent money on it. I don't know what to do. Oh, kind of like how you splurged a little and spent the rent money on food and then sold the Switch that your fiancé really enjoyed using? Like that kind of spending? Final update. After my fiancé went into the bathroom with the Switch, I followed her and still asked where she got it. When she didn't answer, I asked if she spent the rent money. She said no, she had it, but I told her I didn't believe her. I kept pressing till she ended up crying. She packed her bag, including the Switch, and said she would send me the rent money later before it's due. She left and I don't know where she went. She left her engagement ring as well. I'm really upset she just left me like this over a Nintendo Switch. I'm scared she's going to leave. The apartment is in my name, so legally I'm the only one responsible. I cannot afford it myself. I'm stuck and at a loss for words. Also, it's not that I'm immature or need communication. I just feel like she needs to worry about rent, making dinner, oh, fuck you, and having the house clean before she worries about a Nintendo Switch. We had the agreement that she would do all that if I were to work extra, which I have. So her getting mad about me selling my things is ridiculous. If she went and sold her makeup or whatever items that belonged to her to make rent, then I wouldn't care. I wish she would open her eyes and realize it wasn't a big deal. And to those who are commenting about how I said it's not my business, but I kept hounding her about the Switch she bought, I ended up finding out she used her part of the rent to buy the Switch, which makes me mad. She has no rent money because she wasted it on a system that we could eventually get later on when we had the money. I'm not updating anymore. I'm too tired. I don't buy for 1 minute she actually spent the rent money like he said. That's just him covering his tracks after Reddit started fucking eviscerating him. Like, dude got torn apart. Rightfully so. Like, out of all the things to sell in the house, you went for the thing that your fiancé really enjoyed and she really enjoyed having. You didn't talk to her about it, you didn't ask her if she wanted to buy it from you because you were short on rent, you didn't communicate about your finances, which is extremely important to do with your fiancé and the person you're going to fucking marry. And then you just couldn't comprehend why she was upset that you sold her main source of entertainment that she was probably really invested in and probably really enjoyed and looked forward to just spending time on. Yes, legally it's yours and you had every right to sell it. But the fact that you can't comprehend why she would be upset about that and that you just are like, well, you know, I sold it and we can have a nice dinner. That's your consolation prize? And keep in mind, he only sold the Switch because he splurged previously in the month and bought a bunch of food. That was the wording he used. He splurged. He wasted rent money, came up short, and then targeted the one thing that his fiancé really enjoyed to sell for scrap. Buddy, if she left her engagement ring and you're scared that she might leave you, I got news for you. She's not coming back. I hope before you start your next relationship, whenever that may have been, that you really learn the difference between a fiance, a girlfriend, and a roommate. Because right now, you're treating your fiance like she's nothing more than a roommate. Like, yeah, my roommate's mad because I sold my Switch to make rent, and they're pissed at me because I didn't ask them first. Yeah, that would have been a little bit of a different scenario. But this is your fucking fiance, my dude. Your fiance who you didn't give a shit about, and, well, I just spent the whole day playing PS5 while she was at her mother's house. God damn. I've seen 16-year-olds post on Reddit who have more emotional maturity than you do, dude. Also, by the way, I literally sprinted back to my vocal booth when I realized I forgot this. Okay, it's not really a booth, it's more of a closet covered and decorated with acoustic foam, but it works. Buddy out here says, yeah, I just expect her to cook and clean and keep the house in order. Meanwhile, I'll do extra work to make up for it, so it's even. So she keeps the house in order, and you're supposed to do extra work. Yeah, how's that extra work really working out for you? That apparently splurging on food puts you in the position where you gotta start selling things around the house to make rent. Sounds like you fucking lied to your fiance so she would do the cleaning for you. Cross-posted to UhOhConsequences by I Swear I'm a Writer 963. Originally posted to r/mildly infuriating. The original OP is Sufficient Control 606. A friend of mine is mildly infuriated that he can't keep his neighbors awake until midnight anymore. My friend was venting to me today about his nightmare neighbors in his new upscale neighborhood. He bought a fixer-upper, and since he has a contractor's license, he's been doing the renovations himself. The issue, he's been power tooling and hammering away until midnight for several days straight. Naturally, the neighbors called the police. He was indignant, telling me, I'm the homeowner. I have the right to work on my own property whenever I want. The next night, they called again, claiming he was working without a permit or a pro. He got to have his gotcha moment by waving his license and permits in their faces. Apparently, the town's old ordinance didn't actually specify quiet hours for homeowners doing DIY work. The neighbors eventually tried to talk to him reasonably to ask for a ceasefire after 9 p.m. His response? He basically told them to fuck off because he wasn't technically breaking any laws. Well, the neighbors didn't take that sitting down. They spent the last week lobbying the town council, and they actually got the noise ordinance changed. Now, work has to stop by 8 p.m. My friend is absolutely livid that they infringed on his rights. But I'm just sitting here, mildly infuriated that he thinks being a licensed contractor makes it okay to be a world-class jerk to his new neighbors. Honestly, you probably should have called him out on his behavior, like just up front and, was honest with him. Because he's gonna keep doing what he's gonna do if he thinks that, in his circle, he's in the right. But if you're like, no, dude, you're being an asshole here, then he might actually begin to change his tone. Or you could lose a friend, but is this really a friend you want to keep around? Buddy fucked around, didn't agree to a ceasefire at 9 p.m. to allow his neighbors to properly sleep, and instead now has to stop at 8 p.m. because now it's against the law. It's not unreasonable for neighbors to be like, hey, could you maybe be quiet after these hours and not be loud because, I'm trying to sleep? I mean, I'm a night owl, so I exist at night. Even with me being a night person, I still try to make as little noise as possible because I know for a fact that all of my neighbors don't exist on the night schedule. And even when they go and do yard work or loud stuff, do you want to know what I do? I put on noise canceling headphones because I know I'm the oddball. You doing DIY renovations at midnight makes you an oddball. Try to respect that. Also, you have to be one infuriating bastard if your actions cause someone to resort to, you know what would be an easy solution to fix this? The city's bureaucracy. Originally posted to r/OhNoConsequences and cross-posted from r/bestof. The original OP is Lucy Aria Rose, and their tagline is, I'm keeping the garlic. The original OP is Girlfriend License Throwaway, posted to r/AmITheAsshole, October 1st, 2023. Am I the asshole for not saving my girlfriend's driver's license and refusing to drive her to and from work? My 28 male, girlfriend 26 female, is always late. Always, no matter if it's 5 minutes up the road or catching a plane. Before we get into it, no, she isn't on the autism spectrum. She doesn't have ADHD or time blindness. She just dwaddles all the time. She snoozes her alarm at least 3 times every morning, then lays there going through her social media. Eventually, she gets up and takes a long-ass shower, dresses, which takes her forever, and she usually sits wrapped in a towel on her phone, then lingers over her coffee. 9 times out of 10, she's running late for work and ends up speeding to make it on time. Naturally, she's gotten a number of speeding tickets. I've tried to help her, e.g., putting her phone where she can't reach it from bed so she has to get up to snooze it. But she literally just grabs it and goes back to bed. You try to get her to move her ass and she just digs in her heels and takes even longer. Her response to people calling out her lateness is better late than dead on time. Wasn't that a slogan for an anti-speeding campaign? Is she trying to claim that she was late because she wasn't speeding? Anyway, again, she was running even later than normal for work, and really had to speed to make it. A week goes by, and sure enough, massive speeding fine in the mail. She now has to hand in her driver's license because she's got so many demerit points. She'll be without one for 6 months. Instead of just dealing with it, she tells me, "I'll need you to cop this one and say you were driving so I don't lose my license." And of course, I refused, telling her she needs to live with the consequences of her actions and maybe she should stop speeding and wake up earlier. This argument went on for a few days until she finally conceded, then proceeds to tell me, "Well, you'll have to drive me to and from work until I get my license back." And I tell her I won't be doing that. Her work is literally in another direction than my work is from home, and doing so would add another 2 hours of driving per day. She says it shouldn't matter as my work has flexible hours. But I stood my ground and refused, and said she can take public transport. There's literally a bus stop that's a 2-minute walk from her house, and the bus stop's maybe a 5-minute walk away from her work. And it's quite regular. She says she hates public transport and refuses to ride it. So I said, then it's Uber for her, or organize a carpool. But bottom line, it's not my responsibility. She called me an asshole and is giving me the silent treatment, said a decent boyfriend would go to those lengths for her, and that it's only 6 months. So, am I the asshole for not saving her license and refusing to drive her to and from work for 6 months? Too long didn't read, girlfriend is always running late, speeds to work, gets caught, loses license, expects me to cop the blame so she can keep her license, I refused. She then expects me to drive her to and from work, but it's literally out of my way. Says I'm the asshole. Edit, we live in Brisbane, Australia for those wondering. OP has voted not the asshole. Update 1 in the comments, October 2nd, 2023, the next day. Add, wow, I wasn't expecting such a response and definitely not everyone being on my side. She told me all her friends think I'm the asshole, which is a big part of why I came here in the first place. After seeing the responses here, I messaged a few of them, and the ones she actually did contact said not the asshole. As for why I'm still with her, I'm starting to question that myself. I've not been really happy with her the last few months, and this is starting to make me question the entire relationship. Update 2 in the comments, October 3rd, 2023, the next day, 2 days from the original post. So, today, I asked her if she looked at the train/bus timetables, and she hit me with, paraphrasing, "Oh my god, you seriously aren't going to help me? You really expect me to catch public transport? Blah blah blah." Reflecting on this and past behavior and her attitude towards the whole thing, I'm gonna break up with her. Thank you everyone for your help. Final update 3 in the comments, October 12th, 2023. I've certainly had more pleasant experiences in life. She didn't take it well. Lots of yelling and screaming, then doing a complete 180 and crying and begging, trying the sympathy card. You know I can't afford a place on my own. True, I own the house and don't charge her rent. Then promising she'll do better and change. I pointed out to her this is not the first or even the 10th time this has been brought up to her, and that I'm no longer happy in the relationship. I listed a number of issues as well, and she started to call me an asshole and listed my issues, to which I responded, well, then I guess it is best if we break up, which didn't go down well. She moved in with a friend temporarily, and I've told her I'm going no contact. I will let her friend know when she has mail, etc. delivered here, but for now, I think it's best we don't talk to each other. Her friend says she's carpooling to work with a coworker, but as usual, she's always a few minutes late. Then the coworker is there to pick her up. LOL. To be honest, it's a massive relief. I didn't realize how stressful being with her truly was until now. And while I'm still down, I think the future is bright ahead. In the comments, user Kyoshi the Powerful comments, OP had an additional comment about all of this. Minor update. Don't know how many will see this, but I just found out that she's lost her job for continually being late. Apparently, she was already on probation, has had multiple warnings, and her boss is fed up, despite all her offers to stay back late to make up the time. Karma is really kicking in big time. Okay, look, if you've reached a point in your life where both your boyfriend and your boss have the same complaint about you, and this isn't just a one-time complaint either, it's a consistent complaint that you refuse to do anything about, no matter what kind of conversations either of them have, whether it's the boyfriend trying to get out of bed sooner or the boss actively being like, hey, you're on probation because you're constantly late, then at that point, any kind of consequence that follows from you just not giving a shit, that's beyond on you. Like, you just deserve it at that point in time. Then, of course, the cherry on top when the consequences actually do swing in and it's like, well, shit. Now I might lose my license. Now there's a hefty fine. Now I might be at risk of losing my job. Hey, hon, will you take the fall for me? You're the asshole if you don't take the fall for me, despite all the times that you tried to get me to fix this behavior that made this an inevitability. Hey, will you take this demerit for your license and potentially have your insurance spike? Please? All my friends think you're the asshole if you don't. I just hope that maybe after losing her license, losing her relationship, and losing her job, maybe she'll start to take some personal responsibility for a change. This one was actually cross-posted from UhOhConsequences by Little Soda Pop 13. The original OP is Ramen Noodles 620. Freeloading relatives don't want to chip in on living costs. Move out, and now regret moving out. Some of my relatives moved to the US a few months ago. My parents let one of the families, Uncle Ben, Aunt May, and two cousins, Mary and Stacy, live with them. My parents live in a very nice, walkable city. Their apartment is in a great location, close to public transport, but in a quiet area. Unfortunately, it's also very expensive. My parents' apartment would easily cost $4.5 to $5K a month to rent, where they live. So, despite it being a tight living situation, it was really the only option currently for the relatives who just moved. They had basically no money, no credit, and their jobs would, for now, be limited to minimum wage jobs. We fronted the cost of their immigration fees, got them phones, found my cousins free English classes at a public library, a 5-minute walk from my parents, got my cousins jobs at a Dunks that's about 1.5 miles from the house and a 10 to 15 minute bus ride away. My parents found my uncle a job at a Dunks, slightly further away, but still less than 2 miles. However, he couldn't get past the training. My parents continued to try to find him jobs, but it was taking more time than expected. Aunt May refused to work. Still, both the cousins had jobs, so they had some income. My parents found one of the cousins a job at a bakery, but she didn't like the hours. I got the other one an interview at a grocery store that would have paid more, but she missed the phone interview. That's all to say, we were trying to get them jobs and doing our best to find jobs for people with limited English, while also trying to set them up for future success via English classes, applying for various public housing, and getting them some work experience. After 4 to 5 months, my parents approached my aunt and uncle about them starting to chip in for groceries and utilities, since the two cousins had been working for a couple months at that point. My parents went from having 2 people and a cat to now having 6 people and a cat to house and feed. My dad went from getting groceries 1 to 2 times a month to having to go every week. My parents aren't well off either. They live a frugal lifestyle, and my dad was fortunate to buy the apartment they live in a long time ago, or else we would have been priced out a long time ago. Apparently, that was too much of an ask, so they said they'll move out. Completely fine, since nobody was forcing them to stay, and it wasn't doing my parents any favors. The whole time my relatives lived with my parents, my aunt and uncle would constantly mention that they had other family and friends in other parts of the US that would help them out. Where these family and friends were when I spent hours helping with their immigration applications, fronting their immigration fees, buying them phones to use in the US, or even getting them winter clothes, I have no idea. So, my dad said, fine, if that's what you want to do, then move out, since you don't want to pay us anything and have all these other people that can help you. Pretty much a week after the conversation about chipping in, they had someone from my aunt's side of the family fly from Michigan and then drive them 13 plus hours from where we are to Michigan. Guess my relatives were correct in having other people that can help them. Before they moved, I suggested my uncle or my aunt and uncle go to Michigan first and see how it is before making such a big change. He refused. We even found places in New Jersey where the cost of living was lower. They could have jobs and still be close enough to all our family for visits. But they refused because they didn't trust a family friend who lived in that area that offered to help. The reason they didn't trust this family friend is because he had the audacity to say that in order to find an apartment, he'd need them to put a deposit down for it. He wouldn't front it for them. Once they moved to Michigan, they quickly realized the help there is more limited than what they had here, and it's not quite as nice over there. My uncle kept talking about factory jobs he could do out in Michigan, and he got one. However, it's not quite as cushy as he was imagining, since they're basically out of the home from 5 in the morning to 4 to 5 p.m. My aunt even decided she now can work despite telling us no earlier. The area itself is not as nice, and my cousins don't feel safe walking around. There is no good way for them to get around without a car, which they don't have. They're being nickel and dime for everything that their friends over there are helping them out with. Not quite the same situation they had while living with my parents. When my aunt and uncle have called me, it's all complaints about how tough the work is, how his blood pressure is high, how my aunt can't sleep with the stress. They want to move back closer, etc. Even one time said something along the lines of, "I'm of course not asking you to help, but we're having a tough time." Tone basically being one of expecting me to offer to help in some way. I've just said, hopefully things will get better because what else am I supposed to say? At this point, I rarely answer their calls because it'll just be complaints and whining. Ah, God, what's that saying? Don't beat a gift horse with an aluminum bat? It's something like that. There is something incredibly cathartic about dealing with someone where you're pretty much doing a bunch of little things for them to help them stay afloat. They just take everything for granted. They just don't really care. And then when you finally ask for help with a bunch of the little things you've been doing, it's, "No, I'm gonna go set off on my own now because you're being untrustworthy or selfish or X, Y, and Z." And then reality hits them like a bus without brakes in a school zone and, well, look at that. The offer I made previously seems a lot more attractive, huh? Well, it's off the table now. I'm not giving it back. You guys totally just decided to burn that bridge. It's one of those few guilty pleasures in life where when you did everything to help someone, they took it for granted and then walk away, and now they're suffering without your help. It's just, look at that. The things I was doing for you did actually matter, and now you actually get a taste of what life is really like, huh? Oh, look at you. And me, alone, together, at the outro. Don't worry, nothing bad will happen. I'm just going to tell you to use code KEYZ at checkout with gamer subs. Yeah! But seriously, every time you use code KEYZ at checkout with gamer subs, it actually supports the channel directly. And every purchase made, well, you get 10% off. Well, actually, as of right now, or until from the 24th to the 1st of May, at 2 p.m. EST, you actually get free worldwide shipping for all purchases above $75. So hey. But yeah, I can assure you with a 100% certainty, 99% certainty, that if you use code KEYZ at checkout, you will probably not be funding my Transformers addiction. I may or may not be slowly collecting and scavenging up the Dreamstar Toys Devastator Combiner. Very excited for that because it looks really cool. And now that I have adult money and it's becoming disposable, it's like, well, shit. May as well get things that would make childhood me very happy. That's right, motherfuckers. Instead of me buying a Lamborghini, I'm buying Transformers. And you can't stop me.